What's up, Nashville? This is Beau with the Free Speech Podcast. As always, we are going to cover the top stories of the week coming out of Nashville commercial real estate, politics, sports, business, and anything else we think is interesting to share. I am going to give you a overview of the stories we're going to cover today, but before I do so, as always, the podcast is brought to you by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, your broker if you are a seller of commercial real estate in Nashville and the Southeast. Let's get started. First story of the day, BNA could potentially be renamed Trump International Airport. I can only imagine how many heads are exploding in Nashville proper. Having heard that, I'll tell you that story. Next, a Florida-based golf facility is heading to Nashville. It's a very interesting concept. I'm going to share that with you. Next, we'll talk about credit unions who are actually lending money, right? So I'm in the commercial real estate business. The most difficult aspect of our market today is still the availability of financing, right? So I'm going to lay out for you the credit unions who have actually lent more in 2024 than they did in 2023. So those lenders who are actually lending more money than they used to, which is unique because most lenders are pumping the brakes and lending less. So I'm going to break down for you who's lending more than they used to be. Then I'm going to do the same for the banks, right? So credit unions are a little different than banks. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the banks that are lending more than they used to. Next, U.S. store closings are predicted to surpass pandemic records in 2025. So we're actually going to close more retail stores this year than we did at the height of the pandemic. It's really an interesting situation to be in. I'm going to walk you through that. Next, the buyer behind the bargain deal for 2 downtown office buildings has been revealed, and they're planning a big transformation. I'll tell you that story. Bridgestone, one of the area's largest employers, shuts down its 700-person Laverne plant. What that means for Greater Nashville, I'll share that with you. The Federal Reserve chooses not to lower interest rates. The biggest challenge we have in the commercial real estate business is not only the availability of financing, but also the cost of that financing. We've got real problems in the real estate market, especially on the residential side, whereby folks are locked into very low interest rates, which is preventing them from being able to move to a new home. If you're going from a 3% interest rate to a 7% interest rate, you're effectively increasing your mortgage payment by 250%, and people just are refusing to do it. So we aren't really going to see a material change in the residential business until those interest rates get much lower, and the Fed doesn't seem to be in any big of a hurry. I'll explain to you what they're doing and what some other Federal Reserves around the world are doing. Phoenix-based Fox Restaurants to open a Franklin restaurant. So this is a big name restaurateur. They're opening their first ever restaurant in Franklin. I'll share to you what is planned there. A rare development site just off of Lower Broadway is on the market. So anytime there's Lower Broadway news, I know folks like to hear it. This is going to be a premium new development. It's going to sell for an eye-popping price. I'll walk you through that. A massive luxury mall is coming to Thompson Station. That's right. Luxury mall in Thompson Station. Thompson Station is actually popping off right now. Thompson Station is having a real moment. I'll walk you through the mall that's planned there. And then lastly, Opryland Resort starts a massive multi-$100 million expansion. I'll let you know what they've got planned there and why they're doing it. So let's get into the stories today. I'm going to bring it to you, share only what's necessary, kind of give you the highlights so you are up to date in a very short period of time. Of course, first on the list, and excuse me, I'm dragging today, y'all. I just got done playing 90 minutes of basketball, and I got a rally here, so bear with me. BNA to potentially become Trump International Airport. Warner, this is Todd Warner, a state lawmaker who represents Marshall County and part of Williamson County, has filed legislation to rename BNA as Trump International Airport. Tennessee is Trump country, whether folks like it or not, he says. It's a great way to honor a great president who's trying to help all of America, who's trying to bring us all back together. Warner said that this is state senator now, Joey Hensley, whose district includes part of Williamson County and Maury County, will sponsor the bill in that chamber. It's just a proposal, and the state's legislative session has only just begun. Though with a Republican supermajority and a Republican governor, the bill easily can be enacted into law. The airport remains a flashpoint in the political fight between state Republicans and Metro, including an ongoing lawsuit over which level of government controls appointments to the Metro Nashville Airport Authority. Warner, however, said his bill is not meant to be a jab at the city. It's a bill to show how Trump has promised that our golden years are ahead. I honestly believe he's going to try to do that, he said. For those who don't know, we have one of the most poorly named airports in the country. You probably don't even know what BNA stands for. No one really does. The 3-letter BNA airport code draws on the original name for Nashville's airport, Berry Field, named for U.S. Army Colonel Harry Berry, a Hendersonville native and veteran of World War I who oversaw construction of the airport as a state administrator for the Works Progress Administration in the 1930s. That is a terrible name for an airport. I appreciate that he oversaw construction back 100 years ago, but we can absolutely do better. I think it would be awesome if Nashville's airport was renamed Trump International, but I know that is a topic that a lot of the liberals in Nashville are not going to like. But I'd co-sign that. I think that would be a good change. I think it'd be good for the city, for the airport. We'll see. It seems like it's probably going to be an uphill battle, but what do I know? Next, a Florida-based golf facility is heading to Nashville called the Putting Zone. It will open at 3040 Sidco Drive this fall. The 29,000 square foot indoor facility has an 18-hole par 72 putting course built with target zones and dogleg features. I'm not a golfer here. I admit I don't have the time to golf. No one ever taught me how to golf. But we're talking about a putt-putt facility with a 72 par with target zones and dogleg features. I'm not even sure what that means, but I like it. We've created something truly special with the Putting Zone, said the founder and CEO. This concept has been years in the making, and it's designed to serve every golfer, whether you're sharpening your skills for competition or enjoying a round of fun. The unique combination of world-class facilities, competitive leagues, and the golf museum with one of the largest collections of antique putters really sets us apart. That's interesting, right? I wonder if golfers, like the hardcore golfers, are really that into antique putters. I'd like to hear. The Putting Zone will offer memberships as well as league and tournament play for varying skill sets. Nashville is the brand's first location. The Putting Zone will neighbor the Pickler and its Tap That Sports, offering a self-pour beer tap wall in full. Boy, that is a lot. So it's next to the Pickler, which is a pickleball place, and Tap That Sports, which is a purveyor of self-pour beer, it seems. Nashville is attracting more and more indoor sports facilities, including Paddle House, In-Town Golf Club, and the Hideout Golf Club. So these are all very interesting uses for big box space, or in this case, more of a traditional industrial space. But any type of healthy activity where people are getting out, having fun with each other, I'm all about it. I hope they can make it work. I hope all of those pickleball facilities can make it work. I hope all the new golf concepts can make it work. I think it's good for a community, for adults and children alike, to get out and have fun with one another. Credit unions who are increasing their lending. So if you're one of the many buyers out there that wishes they could acquire some commercial real estate, but they can't find a bank or a credit union to lend to them, let me tell you who has increased their lending the most over the past year. Number one on the list is Outreach Federal Credit Union out of Hermitage. They are lending 144% more than they did the prior year. St. Thomas Credit Union out of Nashville, lending 100% more than they did the prior year. Then we get to Ascend Federal Credit Union, who's one of the bigger credit unions in the area. U.S. Community Credit Union out of Nashville. And then last for our discussion today, this is number 5 on the list, Forterra Credit Union out of Clarksville. So if you're writing these down, the top 5 credit unions who are increasing the amount of lending they're making right now: Outreach Federal Credit Union, St. Thomas Credit Union, Ascend Federal Credit Union, U.S. Community Credit Union, and Forterra Credit Union. Now, let's quickly do the same for those lenders who are considered banks as opposed to credit unions. Number 1 on the list, Sonata Bank out of Brentwood. They lended 123% more than they did the previous year. Next comes Volunteer State Bank, headquartered in Portland, Southern Bank of Tennessee out of Mount Juliet, TriStar Bank out of Dixon, and number 5 on the list, First Freedom Bank out of Lebanon. Interesting that the top 5 banks who are increasing their lending, none of which are located in Nashville. So if you're out there trying to borrow money, you need to get more creative. You can't just go to all the big banks because they're the ones that have really stopped. Try to find a local bank who's going to give you a chance. Spend the time on really understanding you and your needs. These are the banks that I'd start with: Sonata, Volunteer State, Southern Bank of Tennessee, TriStar Bank, and First Freedom Bank. I hope that's a little bit helpful. Lending is kind of the bane of my existence at this point, so I'm trying to help in any way I can to get these banks lending again. All right, let's move on. This is shocking to me, right? So the Nashville market for retail space has a vacancy rate that is very, very low, something like 4%. And in those very desirable pockets, it's even less than 4%, right? So retail space is very hard to come by right now in Nashville. And yet, U.S. store closings, this means retail stores, are predicted to surpass pandemic records this year. So we have historically low vacancy, and we're going to have historically high retail store closings all at the same time, which is really incredible. U.S. store closings are expected by some analysts to more than double in 2025 from last year's total and surpass pandemic figures driven by liquidations and scaled back retail footprints. Following a spike in 2024, store closings will escalate this year to roughly 15,000. Store openings will remain steady with about 5,800 debuting national this year. So 15,000 to close, 5,800 to open. In the height of the pandemic, we tracked almost 10,000 store closings. So we're not only going to surpass the pandemic peak, we're going to blow it out of the water from 10,000 then to 15,000 now. On the flip side, there were 5,900 store openings in 2024, the highest number since we began monitoring in 2012. But overall, store closings outpaced openings in 2024 with a net loss of 1,300 stores. So even in 2024, we've got more stores closing than opening. The U.S. retail industry endured a rocky 2024, facing consumers cutting back on spending, the aftershock of the pandemic, and rising costs due to inflation and high interest rates. Despite last year's closings, the U.S. retail vacancy rate remains low at about 4.1%. We expect major 2025 store closings to fall into three broad categories: liquidations resulting in all stores closing, distressed retailers closing large swaths of stores, often under Chapter 11 bankruptcy restructuring, and legacy retailers reshaping their store footprints due to a changed retail context. The store closings announced late last year and early this year by Party City, Big Lots, Kohl's, and Macy's are fueling the elevated closure numbers that have already kicked off the new year. Inflation and a growing preference among consumers to shop online to find the cheapest deals took a toll on brick and mortar retailers in 2024. Retailers that were unable to adapt supply chains and implement technology to cut costs were significantly impacted, and we continue to see a trend of consumers opting for the path of least resistance. Not only do they want the best prices, but they also have no patience for stores that are constantly disorganized, out of stock, and that deliver poor customer service. New competitors Shein and Temu are also pressuring incumbent retailers. I'm feeling that. It's hard to get me into the store, and if you do get me into the store, it's because I need that thing right there. Right then and there, you need to sell it to me. I need to walk out with it. I hate walking into a store that doesn't have the item, and they say, oh, well, we can order it for you. Well, why did I come here then? Why am I physically in your store if you're just going to order it for me? I could have done that from home. The last time I visited a Best Buy, I think Best Buy is painful, but I needed something. I went into Best Buy thinking, okay, I got to get it right now. I'm going to go all the way over to Best Buy, pick it up. I get there, they don't have anything. They're sold out of that item. If it's me and you're a brick and mortar store, you should really focus on having all of your merchandise on the shelves. You should never be running out of things. You need to be in stock, because that's the whole idea. You got that instant gratification of, hey, I'm going to show up, but I've got to go there rather than just order it from my phone. But then I can walk out with it and use it in that moment. As soon as you start getting buyers in the door only to reveal to them that you're out of stock of that item, good luck getting them back there. I haven't been to Best Buy since. That was years ago. So I agree. I have zero patience for mismanaged brick and mortar stores, and it sounds like I am not the only one. Excuse me, let me wet my whistle here. Okay. The buyer behind the bargain deal for 2 downtown office buildings has been revealed, and they're planning a big transformation. Nashville-based investment firm Realm paid a collective $15 million for downtown's Parkway Towers and Court Square building last month. East Coast investment firm Wheelock Street Capital sold the 2 buildings at a combined loss of approximately $26 million. The firm is planning to convert the 218,000 square foot Parkway Towers building into apartments or a hotel. The 2 office buildings located at 404 and 300 James Robertson Parkway are situated on a 1.2 acre site near the Tennessee Capitol. So the larger building there, 218,000 square feet, is going to be converted from office to either apartments or a hotel, maybe a combination of the two. So really, when you pay $15 million for a building, you're really buying the land on which it sits, the walls, the roof, and everything else is kind of getting demoed and starting over. So you can understand why this seller took such a loss, because this building was no longer a viable use as an office building. And now you pay $15 million for the structure and the land, and you've got much, much more than $15 million that you've got to invest into it to convert it to something new. So as soon as these office buildings are classified as kind of defunct and no longer a viable use as office, changing them from office to something new sounds really attractive, is extremely difficult, extremely expensive, and the final product isn't nearly as nice as new construction would be. So all these buildings that you're hearing about, office building conversions, it's a very tricky thing to do profitably. It's a very tricky thing to do so that the finished product can compete with new construction. So, everybody's got a negative view on some of this older Class B, Class C office space. It's not as simple as you think to convert it to a different use. People oversimplify how easy that is to do. And for it to even be possible, the seller has to take a huge loss so that the going in basis is low enough to even have a chance at making one of these conversions work. So the office building conversion game is much, much more difficult than the average person understands. And the guys that are actually doing this type of work have very big kahunas. Very difficult to do, very costly. You got to have access to a lot of capital. You've got to really endure a long, extensive reconstruction project. And then after you get all of that work done, you've still got to get them leased, and you're competing against a lot of new construction, especially in downtown Nashville. So not an easy thing to do. I wish the buyers luck on that endeavor. Bridgestone shuts down a 700-person Laverne plant. Nashville-based Bridgestone Americas will shut down its longtime tire plant in Laverne in July. That decision alone erases 700 hourly and salaried roles, in addition to other workforce reductions in the company's U.S. corporate sales and operations. The known number of jobs equals 25% of Bridgestone's Nashville region workforce, so a fourth of their workforce getting laid off. Bridgestone is among the most visible Nashville companies, with its name atop its downtown tower, as well as downtown's Bridgestone Arena. It's also among the 25 biggest employers in the metro area based on head count. They said, "We are confident that this decision will strengthen our core business, enabling us to operate more efficiently." So that's a bummer. You never want to see one of your biggest employers laying off a full quarter of their workforce. That is not a good sign. I hope they can turn it around. Next, the Federal Reserve chooses not to lower interest rates. The Fed said on Wednesday that it will keep the rate fixed within the range of 4.25% and 4.5%, as it has signaled in its first decision of 2025 after 3 reductions last year to try to control inflation. So 3 reductions last year. That followed nearly a dozen increases from 2022 to 2023. So as the government continued to overspend our money by printing dollars and borrowing money and collecting taxes, they created this out of control inflation. Rather than acknowledging it and adjusting their spending, they continue to spend, and then in response had 12 interest rate increases from 2022 to 2023. A bunch of fools. And now we're paying for it. So it's going to be a long time before we get back down to those interest rates, the interest rates that we need to get down to for the housing market to open up again. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell explained Wednesday at a press conference that the Fed needs to see administrative policies from tariffs to immigration before it can fully assess interest rate strategy for the broader economy. He added that while it was not in the data yet, he has heard anecdotal reports of how construction businesses dependent on immigrant labor are saying it's suddenly gotten harder to get people. The country's inflation rate remains somewhat elevated above the Fed's target of 2%. Last week, Trump told the World Economic Forum, "I'll demand that interest rates drop immediately." 2 hours after the Fed decision was announced, Trump lashed out at the bank and its chair. Because Jay Powell and the Fed failed to stop the problem they created with inflation, I will do it by unleashing American energy production, slashing regulation, rebalancing international trade, and reigniting American manufacturing. But I will do it much more than stopping inflation. I will make our country financially and otherwise powerful again. The Fed move comes as the Bank of Canada cut its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to just 3% on Wednesday, following 5 interest rate cuts Canada's central bank made last year. The Bank of England is set to decide next week whether to raise its rates after 2 cuts last year. So the Bank of Canada does not behave as recklessly as the United States did, right? So now they're already back down to 3%, having made 5 interest rate cuts last year. We're at 4.25 to 4.5%. So we're well above the rate that they're seeing in Canada. This is all a direct result of mismanagement of our taxpayer dollars at the federal level. What a bunch of fools. They ran our economy into the ground, and now we're going to try to fight our way back to normal. But what an absolute disgrace the 4 years of the Biden administration was from a financial perspective. Total incomplete incompetence, and we're still paying for it today. I see it all the time in the commercial real estate business. The interest rates and the availability of financing is still the number one issue that we have to contend with. I would tell you over the last 2 or 3 years, we've done as many seller finance deals as we've done bank finance deals. You know, we might do half seller finance deals, a quarter cash deals, and a quarter bank finance deals. That's how bad it's gotten. You know, you really cannot rely on the banks to provide money for a lot of these deals anymore. That's the situation that we're in, and it's going to take us more time to get out of it. It is kind of a hopeless situation trying to borrow money right now with the interest rates and, you know, and the banks just really unwillingness to take on new loans. It's a real problem, but I think I beat that horse to death, so let's keep moving. Phoenix-based Fox Restaurant Concepts to open a Franklin restaurant. Sam Fox is bringing another restaurant to the Nashville area. The Phoenix-based 11-time James Beard-nominated restaurateur will open Flower Child in Franklin this summer at 1566 West McEwen Drive. And if you're trying to place that, that's near the Whole Foods Market on McEwen Drive in Carruthers. Now, fast casual on Mallory, right? Mallory and McEwen near Whole Foods. Fast casual concept Flower Child follows Fox's growing Nashville area portfolio, including the 1230 Club, which is a big deal downtown. Shout out to my buddy Willie, who plays there all the time. I still haven't gotten there because I'm old and lame and I don't go out. But I understand that it's a really classy, fun place to go. Another place called the Henry, Pushing Daisies, Doughbird, and Blanco Cocina and Cantina. Flower Child is one of their most popular culinary destinations. It's not a restaurant, it is a culinary destination. We have been looking for the right location to open our first restaurant in Franklin for quite some time and are thrilled to have found the perfect spot for Flower Child. The Franklin location will be Flower Child's 42nd location in 15 states. The clean eating concept offers customizable bowls, salads, wraps, and more. I don't know, does that kind of sound Chipotle-like? I'm not exactly sure what that means. I could probably get down with it, though. Flower Child also serves wine, beer, and kombucha. The 3,700 square foot restaurant will have a patio and embody the state of Tennessee in its design. Open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week. So stay tuned for Flower Child coming to Franklin for some clean eating in that culinary destination. All right, a few more for you here. They're all pretty short. A rare development site just off of Lower Broadway is now on the market. A large parking lot located behind Broadway's Honky Tonk Central and in front of the Schermerhorn Symphony Center has been listed for sale through a bidding process. The listing includes 3 parcels located at 110, 114, and 118 4th Avenue South and offers a collective 0.45 acres. So this is just less than a block off of Lower Broadway. 0.45 acres in that area is extremely hard to put together because they do a lot of vertical construction there with no parking. So you can have quite a building on 0.545 acres there. The parcels have separate owners, which is interesting, right? So 3 different owners came together to co-list with one another to price maximize what they can get for their parcels there. This happens. It's more difficult than it sounds to get 3 different owners to all agree to participate with one another. I think it's helpful that these parcels are all very similar in size and shape, so one can't necessarily fight too much about getting a different price than its neighbors. Nevertheless, difficult transaction to pull off, difficult just to get them to agree to list with one another. 2 individuals have owned their respective parcels for several decades. The site currently serves as a parking lot. The lease with the parking operator expires in the summer of 2027. So the buyer is going to have some time to prepare the development on the site. They're going to have to wait until the summer of 2027 to break ground. Last year, a Lower Broadway parking lot sold for $16.25 million, or $7,461 per square foot, marking the highest price ever paid for Nashville land. Should we do the math on this one, y'all? Let me grab my trusty calculator here. 43,560 times 0.45 is 19,602 feet times 7,461. So, if we were, can that be possible? That is a crazy number. 19,602 feet times $7,461 per square foot is $146 million. Is that really possible? 19,602 times 7,461. Wow. So, if this site were to sell for the same $7,461 per square foot, which I don't think it will, but if it did, that puts a market value on this 0.45 acres, half acre, at $146 million, which is insanity. I should have prepared in advance for that because that's a shocking number. That's totally unrealistic. But it is going to be a huge number for 3 tiny little parcels currently used for parking. So we'll update you on that deal when that deal finally closes. Again, 7,461 a square foot. That was for an actual Lower Broadway parking lot. This is a half a block off, so that number is going to be a little bit different. But that's a crazy number. Okay, let's keep moving. There are a few developable sites of this scale near Lower Broadway. The property is zoned for a mix of different uses, providing a blank slate for potential buyers. So some buyer is going to pay a huge amount of money for that little parking lot, and something very awesome is going to be developed there. That's the moral to that story. A massive luxury mall is coming to Thompson Station. Nashville-based AJ Capital Partners and Indianapolis-based Simon Property Group are partnering on a massive luxury outlet mall in Thompson Station, to be named Nashville Premium Outlets. It includes a 325,000 square foot mixed-use center with approximately 75 retailers, restaurants, and a hotel, as well as a potential for residential space and big box retailers. This is going to occur at the intersection of Interstate 65 and 840. Construction is expected to start next year in 2026. The project was first revealed nearly 3 years ago. This is what a lot of people don't realize about development. First of all, development is a very, very difficult game to play, right? You've got to have a lot of patient capital. You are starting projects 3-4 years before you even break ground. You break ground, you've got multiple years of construction. Then you've got to tenant those facilities. And then finally, a dollar comes in the door. So everybody thinks that developers get rich. Well, I'll tell you what, it is a very, very difficult and risky game to play. You've got to have access to a lot of money just to survive and hope you come out the other end on top. So anybody that aspires to be a developer, I would tell you first, go shadow a real developer for a day. See what it's actually like and focus on the cash flow. Focus on all the cash outflow for years before you've actually got any cash inflow at the end. So just my 2 cents there. Simon Property Group also owns the mall at Green Hills and the Opry Mills Mall and operates more than 230 properties nearby. So Simon owns the 2 premier malls in the area, now will own Nashville Premium Outlets. Retail and dining tenants will be similar to those found in other Simon Property Group outlets. Some of the world's best-known luxury brands, Armani, Balenciaga, Valentino, Fendi, as well as more common brands like Ann Taylor, Old Navy, and Gap can be expected. AJ Capital is largely known as the driving force behind Wedgwood Houston's transformation from industrial to artistic hotspot. The firm is also leading the Belmead Plaza project, the controversial redevelopment of the long-standing Belmead Kroger site. So I'm telling you, Thompson Station is about to pop off. So if that's an area that you're real interested in living, I would say get in now because prices are going to go crazy. I have to tell you though, I live nearby, own some property in Thompson Station. The roads in Thompson Station are totally inadequate. There are 2-lane roads without street lights. The driving in that area is kind of bumper to bumper. You wouldn't expect it, kind of a rural, suburban community, but the roads are going to have to improve in Thompson Station if it's going to be able to continue this trajectory. That's just my 2 cents. And lastly, the Opryland Resort starts a massive expansion. The Gaylord Opryland Resort and Convention Center will celebrate its 50th birthday in 2027 with a bang. Completion of a $224 million multi-phase renovation and expansion project. The goal of the project is threefold: to ensure Opryland remains the flagship property for Ryman Hospitality Properties, to attract and accommodate more premium corporate groups, and evolve on the same trajectory as Nashville itself. The $224 million project at Opryland refreshes current meeting space, recasts an underutilized courtyard with food, beverage, and group opportunities, and expands the amount of carpeted ballroom and breakout space, all while giving the property a feel of modern Southern elegance. I like that. Modern Southern elegance. The former Magnolia Pool Courtyard is being transformed into the $40 million Magnolia District, consisting of a 6,200 square foot event lawn, 3,000 square foot pavilion, and 550-seat multi-story sports bar with a tasting room. Quote, "We try to reflect the region the hotel is in because that's what meeting attendees want. They want to come to Nashville and they want to experience Nashville. So we try to give them a flavor of Nashville, the South, the music and food and all of those aspects." The last leg of the project is the addition of an L-shaped building that will sit on Briley Parkway and add 108,000 square feet of carpeted meeting space to Opryland, bringing Opryland's total to 765,000 square feet of meeting space. That's a lot of meeting space. I thought as we worked our way through the scamdemic and how all of that group travel essentially stopped, I didn't think it was ever going to come back. I don't fully understand the purpose of group travel. But nevertheless, these big companies are all in. They've got 765,000 square feet of carpeted rooms for you to stand and talk in. I think that is pretty incredible. And I think it's interesting how much demand still exists for that type of meeting. Who is making money? We're spending an insane amount of money. Those businesses are spending an insane amount of money to get those people in that room. how much money is really being made after they leave that room? I don't get it. Maybe someone that does group travel and benefits from it, profits from it, could circle me in. But I don't understand the appeal of group travel. I'm thankful I don't have to do it. My plate is full, and the last thing I want to do is travel to faraway places to stand in big rooms and chat with people. It's not really my vibe. But nevertheless, it seems to be a very legitimate business. Well, I digress. That rounds out today's podcast. Those are the stories that I promised to bring to you. As always, the podcast was brought to you by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. We're headquartered here in Nashville. We cover all of the Southeast. We specialize in listing and selling commercial properties. So if you are the owner of a commercial property in Nashville or the Southeast, and you'd like to bring that property to the market and sell it for the absolute highest price the market will pay, I encourage you to reach out to us. We'll be happy to start that conversation and lead you through that process. Thanks so much, all, for tuning in. Until next time, this is the Free Speech Podcast with Beau, signing off.